Well, it's Christmas time, so I know a lot of people are going to be getting into resin 3D printing, and I have 7 tips to help you get into the hobby. I've been printing for over 3 years. I have thousands and thousands of prints. I'll go months without a single failure, stuff like that. I want to share my knowledge so that none of you get burned spending your Christmas money or your holiday money on a resin 3D printer. So let's get started. Number 1, stop focusing on the resolution the manufacturers advertise on their machines. 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K, 64K, whatever it is. It doesn't matter, because that's not the thing you should be focusing on, because a 4K printer with a build plate this big and a 4K printer with a build plate this big print significantly different models when it comes to quality. What you're looking for is the microns. I'll post it right here, and it's like under 40 microns, you're good to go. That's like basically like the pixel density, kind of like they used to advertise on phones. So don't focus on whether it's 4K or 8K, stuff like that. It matters only when you're comparing it to the size of the build plate. So why not just skip that math, because none of us can do that ourselves, and just look at the microns for the resolution. Number 2, order from Amazon. Now, I don't work for Amazon. I don't have affiliate links, none of that, but I highly recommend that you order your printer from Amazon because they have a very generous return policy. And that return policy helps because when your printer shows up and chances are it has an issue because the quality control for most of these companies is terrible, and something could have got jostled loose as it got shipped here from China, you're going to be new to printing. You're not going to know how to fix it. You're going to be talking to customer service on like Shenzhen time. So who knows when they'll get back to you. And then when they do, they're going to want to ship you a part from China. You'll get it in 3 weeks. You'll see if it works. It doesn't. You find another problem. They'll ship you another part. And by then the return window's over for you being able to send it back. Also, you order from the manufacturer, and if you have to return it on your own dime, that ain't cheap. So I highly recommend you get it from Amazon. It's got problems. Pack it back up after you clean it. Send it back to Amazon. Let it be their problem. Get another one. I got burned. I got a 3D printer, and the build plate was warped. So they said they sent me another build plate. So I'm waiting for a new build plate, and I'm trying to figure out what's wrong. Well, I go to clean out the printer, and I hold up the layer of resin I cured onto the bottom of the FEP just to clean it out. And there's like hot spots, cold spots, all that. The light array was messed up. So by the time I get that build plate, then I would have figured out the light array was messed up. And then who knows if they're going to send me replacement parts for that. I don't even know how to fix that. So I just packaged it back up, returned it to Amazon, got a different printer. And then, oh, look, 3 weeks after I've been printing constantly with this brand new printer that worked, I got my build plate in. I suggest you order from Amazon because of the generous return policy, and just go from there. Number 3, let's talk about resin. Water washable resin sucks. So does eco resin. Eco resin is just as toxic as normal resin. They like to advertise that you can almost drink it, but it's bad. And water washable resin is fragile. You don't want to use water. It takes forever to evaporate. Please don't pour it down the drain. So I just suggest you stick with something that always works. Resin will never be as flexible as plastic models, no matter how much the manufacturers try to gaslight you into thinking that it will. Just get a good name brand ABS like resin, something from like Elegoo, and just go from there. I have a video on how to clean and expose resin models so they don't become fragile, because if you overexpose them in the post-cure process, they get fragile. And I also have a very long video on every resin I've ever used, and I give advice on all of it. I give recommended settings for exposure, all that good stuff. You can check that out on my channel. Number 4, start with a smaller printer. Now, I know you want a big printer because you want to print a lot, but the bigger the printer, the bigger the problems, the bigger the mess, and the bigger the failures. Get something like an Elegoo Mars 4 or a Photon Mono 2, something that's like a 6.5 inch to 7 inch build plate. Something like that is just that sweet spot for being able to print pretty much everything that the big like Patreons and other sculptors make. They prioritize making sure that stuff fits on the smaller build plates. And so just go with something like that. You'll save a ton of headaches as you get into this hobby, and a smaller build plate is just way easier to learn on. Like, I upgraded to a big build plate and I hated it. It's the printer I returned, so I ended up getting a smaller printer again, something with like a 7 inch build plate. So much easier to clean. I still print big stuff. Like, I'm not worried about it taking an extra 6 or 7 hours to print something when I have to do a second print just to fit those last few pieces on. If you fill one of those big build plate printers with a bunch of little dinky models, there's a very good chance half of them are going to get ripped off from the peel force. So just stick with something small when you're new. It will work out better in the long run. Use that money you save not buying a big printer to get more resin and support some sculptors and buy some nice STLs. Number 5, 5, speaking of sculptors, find a good sculptor with really good pre-supported models. Something like the Maker's Cult, One Page Rules, or Highlands Miniatures. A lot of their supports are almost overkill, and I know a lot of people are like, well, I'd rather support them myself, blah, blah, blah. Well, those are experienced printers. Like, they're not new to the hobby. When you have bad supports, you don't know as someone new to the hobby, whether it's exposure settings, your pre-supports, the temperature of the room, all sorts of stuff. Just use reliable pre-supported models just to take away one of those failure points so that you can focus on getting your printer up and running and working well. A bonus tip right here, use basic print settings. Don't go for anything fancy. And don't print under like 0.03 millimeter layer height. Once you get below that, you're just wasting time and burning up your light array prematurely. Like, you're not going to see a noticeable difference jumping from 0.03 to 0.02 other than the amount of time it takes to print it. And each extra layer is just more wear and tear on your printer. Lychee has recommended settings for most printers nowadays. So just stick with those. And if you want a general rule of thumb, like it's generally 0.05 millimeter layer height. And for about 2 seconds, give or take 10%. So if you see something way out of that, don't use those settings. And keep a lower lift speed. Yeah, I know you don't want to wait for your prints to be done, but the other thing you don't want to wait for is your models to get ripped off their supports and then you have to print the whole thing again anyways. So like slow and steady is the way to go with prints. I share my default settings for a lot of the name brand resins in my resin review, and I've got a Mars 3 and a Photon Mono. Those are older printers now, but those settings still work on the newer printers. So you might want to check that out. Now, number 6, this one's important. Wear safety gear. Wear gloves, wear a respirator, be in a well-ventilated room, and please don't print in your living space. Don't print in your living room. Don't print in your bedroom. Please don't print in your kitchen. Like, there's not enough evidence that this stuff is safe for you to be doing that. Like, it's not worth the risk. Like I say in one of my other videos, what I save not buying plastic models, I can spend on healthcare later when my lungs fall out of my body from breathing these fumes for 20 years. It's not worth the risk. Just be safe with this stuff. Don't pour anything down the drain. Like, no chemicals should be going down the drain in your 3D printing process. It poisons aquatic life, and doing careless stuff like that will end up getting this hobby banned in some places, and we don't want that. Like, I love this hobby. I know I sound preachy right now, but I want you to enjoy this hobby as much as I enjoy this hobby, and part of that is being safe and being responsible with it. Number 7, it's easy. Have fun out there, and for the love of all that is unholy, paint your models. Don't print 90,000 models and never paint them. Like, people don't want to play against bare resin models. And the thing is a lot of us get into this hobby as painters. Like, I'm a huge mini painter. I don't mean I'm big. I just mean I'm a big fan of mini painting. And I got into this so I'd have more cool models to paint. And so just go slow when you start out, paint the stuff you're printing, and have fun. And if you want advice on painting some of those 3D printed models, you can check out my channel for those too. Most of my stuff's terrain right now, but I plan on making more about painting models in the future. I really want all of you to have a happy holiday. I hope y'all take some of my advice for getting into 3D printing. I'm only putting this out there because I want all of you to enjoy the hobby as much as I do. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of people who are just shilling stuff with affiliate links. That's not me. And so I hope from like one enthusiast to another that y'all enjoy getting into the hobby. Have a happy holiday, and I'll see you next time.